The following recording is of Constellation facilitators Susan Schlosser, Sara and John Cheney discussing nature constellations in an upcoming constellation event at the Silver Horse Ranch, April 11th through 13th, 2014.
Okay, I have a ranch called Silver Horse Healing Ranch, and I'm in Topanga, and I have 7 horses. They're all rescues, and I work outdoors. That's what I wanted to do. That was my whole motivation for doing what I'm doing, is that I want to do my work outdoors. And I trained with Francesca Mason-Borin and graduated with her in 2008. And a peer of mine, I don't know if anyone knows Hazel Carter. She's a friend of mine and a peer. She suggested that I use the horses in the constellation work, and I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. And so me and Hazel tried it out, and it was amazing. We were just like, oh my God, this is going to work. So ever since then, when it was 2008, I've been using the horses along with the constellation work. So I do groups, and then I also do one-on-ones. And the way I do it is I don't give the horse a role. I let the person who's having a constellation pick a horse. Most of the time, sometimes I pick the horse, but most of the time they pick a horse. The horse comes into a round pen. We're in the round pen. And then the horse sometimes goes into a role, and it's really obvious who the horse is or what they're representing. Sometimes the horse supports the constellation in another way, like starts organizing people by moving around or pushing people a little bit. The horses have never hurt anyone. They're like totally friendly, and they're good at what they do. They don't. No one's ever been kicked or anything like that or bitten, but they do. Sometimes they do shove a little bit. And some of the horses that I have are really big horses. They're Percherons, drafts. And so they can be a little intimidating, but once you get in there in the ring with them, like, people, like, have a totally different opinion of horses when they come out, most of the time, because of the connection that's created with them. So you might wonder why use horses? Why would horses enhance the work at all? So this is my thoughts about that, is that, well, first of all, horses are really tuned in, and their tendency is wanting to balance things, like physically, mentally, emotionally. They want to find the balance. And when we're working on a constellation or something, they'll usually go where the energy needs to be seen or what is out of balance. And then the other thing is that they share the same kind of issues that we might have. Like, they know what abandonment is about. They know loss. They know what community is, family, friendship. I really truly believe that they understand all of that. And so there is a connection that happens that, is an interspecies kind of connection, which is magical. That's how I feel about it. And it's not just the horses. There's other animals as well that tend to come in, like birds, or there's bunny rabbits. There's coyotes. There was a coyote once that came in, not exactly in the round pen, but it was outside the round pen and really visible. And there was a stag that came in once, really up close. It was very unusual. And then insects and things like that. So nature tends to be a part of it as well. And the weather, too. The wind will come up, or one time it started hailing, which is really unusual for California. And then how I see it benefits people is that things happen really fast. Like, when something shifts in someone, when they open a little or a truth is revealed, the horse responds immediately. And it might be like the horse will come over and just stand there, really close. And it's usually when a word is said or a thought is felt or even a slight movement, it's the horses will respond. And it has a profound effect upon the person a lot of times because, the horse is not influenced by anything like you can't beg a horse to do something, you can't coax it, you can't bribe it or whatever. It's just going to do what it does. So when people experience that, it's really profound and cathartic. So I think that's all I want to say. But I can answer questions later. So I want to pass the ball over to Suzanne.
All right. I caught it. Hi again, everyone. And I feel really honored and grateful to be able to do constellation work in general and nature constellation work in particular. For me, it weaves together two of the things that I've really have grown to love the most. Nature's been inherent for me. I've always been one of those kids that got her solace and comfort from nature and from exploring and that kind of, wild side of my being. And then finding constellation work in general has been, for me, like an answer to a kind of prayer I put to the universe of what will really help people, which was myself included. And so I've been trained by Stephen Victor and Francesca Mason-Boring and all kinds of people and I've been with Bert and, et cetera, which I deeply honor and respect and give thanks to all the people I've been learning from and all the representation I've been able to do because I've learned so much from there. And at first I was told that I really, not by Francesca, but I was told that I really couldn't do constellations out in nature because there wasn't a container. But there was something that was moving so deep inside me that I had to do it. So the first place that called, it does actually feel like a call I respond to, was at Chaco Canyon in northern New Mexico. And it's an arduous place to go, and we gathered there, and that began the whole thing. And I found out it was challenging because nature is really in charge. Down there you don't have sun protection, and the second time we went there we had winds at 50 miles an hour. And so you have to work with the larger constellation of what's showing up on the, in the days and with the people and with the planet and with the elements and with, heat and sun and all those things and or rain. When we went to Mount Shasta and that was at we camped at 7,000 feet and had to put up a tarp because it was raining and starting to snow. And so, not all of the trips are like that, but it is working with nature itself and learning to find a way to work together as a little village. When we're a group like that, we become a kind of family, if you will. So we get to look at that dynamic as well as we become a village, and we put ourselves out in nature, and we see what happens. And while out there, also do constellation work. Now, the kind of work I've done out in nature really varies. Sometimes it is actually a family constellation, and or something for, my true work or my business or, my health. I've done all of those outdoors. Others I'm probably not thinking of, and then also then using nature as a resource, because for some people, they came from a place where they really didn't feel connected to their family and they still can't really go there. But nature, maybe, right? Maybe there. Or for some people, maybe they came from a family that really felt more nurturing or whatever, but they don't feel safe out in nature. So it's really been a wonderful blessing to explore in both of those areas with people and see what can open and what we can receive. So in some, it's those kinds of regular, what we think of as, more typical constellations, and calling maybe upon like one I did not too long ago was there was a difficult family situation, and that was, very just tight and not a lot of movement in it. But I knew that the family all connected to Hawaii because they grew up on the island. So we brought in the ocean. And when the ocean came, things began to change. That gave them enough resource and support to move forward. So that's one particular style. The other has been like when I took the group down the Grand Canyon, which we did for 16 days, which, away from showers and toilets and all that stuff, and really out there on that amazing river in the canyon. We really, I stayed away more from family-oriented things and really worked with being with nature right there and calling upon the voice of the rock and the water, the river and the waterfalls and the side canyons and the sky and the elements that were there, and really invited us to deepen our experience of being in that amazing place, one of the 7 wonders of the world. So there's a lot of different ways I use it, and it just keeps creating itself, like with the situations that show up. But it's really important to my heart and my soul to bring more awareness to the earth. And because it's amazing to me how much I might even be walking with a friend or something, and like people, and I'm guilty of this too, we get lost in our world and our thoughts or in our concerns for the time right now and forget to look at, oh my gosh, look at those beautiful flowers, or did you feel that luscious breeze, or smell the jasmine that just came in, or, it's like, wow, we have this whole amazing planet here that gives so much and takes care of us in so many ways, and it feels important to me to open up our avenues of how to honor that and really receive it. And, if there's something we might be able to do for that, do for our planet or for ourselves in relation to the planet, whatever that is. I don't have a right or wrong about how people move that way, but it's just something that feels important to me. So how about that?
That was very good, yeah.
Oh, well, thanks, John. I wasn't actually looking for compliments.
No, thanks so much, Susan. That was good. And
You're welcome.
Sarah.
I'll pass the ball to you now, John.
Okay, all right. So the kind of work I do, it's interesting. There's a little bit of a common thread going through, and that is I was told that, it was back in, I think, 2005, I went to a conference in Portland. It was the first Systemic Constellations conference in the U.S., and Jane Peterson had put it together. And there was a practitioner from Taiwan, I believe, who was doing a thing on Chinese medicine, and it was basically showing the 5 elements and how he used the 5 elements to support the resolution of a family constellation. So, for example, if there was a lot of grief in the family system, he would work with the lung meridian, because in Chinese medicine they believe that the lung is the area, and I think we all can maybe attest to having the experience when we feel grief. A lot of times you feel it in your chest. So if he was working with a family, or an individual in a family, and let's say helping them resolve, maybe generations of grief that were passed down, he found it helpful to use acupuncture as a resource, maybe for a number of weeks after doing a constellation. So anyway, I raised my hand, and I had been studying Chinese medicine for a couple of years at that point. And, I asked, do you think it would be possible to do a 5-element constellation? So this is kind of where the whole process started then. And he said no. and that it would take away from the resolution of the family of origin issue. So I kind of wrestled with that one for a while, and then decided, that I would set it up and see. And then my teacher was Dietrich Veth from Frankfurt, Germany, who would come to Seattle. I live here in Seattle 4 times a year. Started training with him in 1999, and he told me I don't see any reason why that would be a problem. And it was interesting when I asked him that question. I already had set up a few of the constellations, and it just so happens that one of the people that was in the workshop that I was at with my teacher had done a constellation with me, and I saw it as a helpful tool. So from there, I began to develop the process that I'm doing today. And so it's basically, as far as it being a nature constellation, it's using, the 5 elements. So fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And it's basically a metaphor for the different organ groups and how they function in your body. So just a real simple example of that would be like the fire element. I think everybody can relate to your heart and fire. So if a person, let's say, has had an impact in their life that affects their ability to love or trust, then the fire element might be impacted. So, and it's as if the heart is the center or a battery for that energy to be stored or held in the body, and it moves through kind of a predictable, let's say the inside of your arm, kind of from your armpit to your pinky, essentially. And that's where also people who have heart attacks will say they feel usually on the left side, sometimes in the shoulder, but a lot of times in the armpit and all the way down the inside of their arm. So, and that represents the heart meridian. So, and there are points that can be stimulated that initiate or encourage energy to move and flow. So essentially what I do is I set up 5 elements for a client, and we work mainly with health issues. So it's like instead of the family system, it's the system, let's say the energy system of your body that we're setting up. And it has kind of rules of function, how it functions. It has a yin component and a yang component, so masculine and feminine. And each one kind of has a purpose and a duty that it does. So someone I think just popped on.
Sophia.
Sophia, welcome. We'll have you introduce
Hi.
yourself just a little bit later. I'm in the middle kind of describing some work here, but thank you for popping on.
Yes, thank you. Just got home.
Okay. So, at any rate, it's something that I've done mainly indoors, and at this workshop, it looks like I'll probably be doing it outside. So it would be an interesting. Let's see, I've done it a few times outdoors now, but it's mainly in Seattle. It's always raining outside, usually in the winter and that kind of thing. So it's much easier to do the work indoors. But so essentially, what I've worked with people with, let's say, various physical problems, back pain, cancer, chronic fatigue, asthma, seasonal allergies. I've actually done a few constellations recently with children, which has been kind of interesting. I haven't done that before. And then seasonal affective disorder, and Lyme's disease and fibromyalgia. So, and it has been pretty impactful and has made some pretty dramatic shifts for some of my clients. Anyway, so that's kind of it from me. We kind of like to open it up so that you can ask your questions. Before we do that, let's just have Sophia introduce herself and just where you are. Sophia, your location, and just a brief intention, like, something like, well, I want to learn more about constellations with horses or whatever. And then if you'd like to be entered into the drawing, if you're able to come, we're going to be doing that at the end of the phone call. So without further ado, Sophia.
So my name is Sophia. I guess I'm interested in the learning more about the constellation work, especially the one with animals and horses. I met Sara 2 years ago, and I'm just really drawn to this work, and I really admire the work that she does. And I've seen, I brought up some friends and some clients, and I've seen an amazing transformation from an instant, results from people. So it's really fascinating. And I do massage work. That's what I do for a living. But like I was telling one of my clients, there's healing work, there's massage work, and then this is on a different plane. I feel like it's a whole different level. So I tell as many people as I can, especially anybody that's open, about this work.
Excellent.
So
thank you.
Yes, you can tell how highly I think of Sara and her work. So yes, I really would like to learn this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing I might have not made clear is that I actually, what's different about 5-element constellations is I actually do hands-on work. So it's kind of like not necessarily doing massage, but it's more acupressure or acutonics. I use tuning forks that I stimulate the meridian points with during the constellation. So it's helpful from the standpoint that people will experience the meridians kind of in a more direct, clear format. So.
And John, I just want to ask you a question, John, to make it clear that you're doing acupressure or acutone, whatever you said it was.
Acutonics, yeah.
On the representatives for the elements, right? Not on the client.
It doesn't matter if I do it on the client. I can do it on the client if they're sitting and watching the constellation, or I can do it on the representatives. It really doesn't matter. So, because
how do you differentiate? How do you make that decision?
Well, sometimes, I try to watch. I try to watch the client and see if they're feeling, if they're relaxed, or if their body language is tense, and then so I look at it as if someone is going through trauma or pain. It depends on the issue, of course. My job is to resource the client so they can be as present as possible. So if they're relatively comfortable, sometimes I will not do any work on the client, but they are feeling what's happening, the work that I'm doing on the representative. So I just try to see, okay, are they regulating well? Are they in a clear space? Are they in pain? Sometimes they'll say, yeah, I have a pain in my leg. And so I want to help that move through. Sometimes they'll feel nausea. There's a lot of, let's say, sensations and feelings that arise that the lesson that I've learned from it is that if something like nausea happens or it's just a message from the body, and it's not good or bad. Of course, we want to move through it, and by the time the constellation's finished, it's cleared. Yeah.
So can I have a question? If somebody has an illness, could this help them heal it, move it through?
Yeah, I've found it very helpful. I had a person who had Lyme's disease, and that was an extremely tricky constellation, and it's hard to describe. I call it systemic entanglement, but typically, just if I can say this straight to the point, typically, the fire element has a way that it expresses normally, and the representatives don't know usually a lot of times how that's supposed to express, but it does anyway. I mean, it's usually their first gut reaction is always correct. It's always correct, I've found. So if we're helping someone kind of through systemic entanglement would mean that they're, something that's showing up in one element is showing up in the opposite element. So it's kind of difficult to explain. But the long story short of it is it can be very, very complex, and it shows that that one individual to the next, we're all very different on how our systems function. Therefore, a diet that's good for you is maybe not so good for me, or particular physical work is not so good for me versus for you. It just depends on how our systems are functioning. So, and how we might be particularly strong in one area and that kind of thing. So yes, the person had a really good shift in their lives, and it requires a lot of supportive work, because one tendency is that we can go back into our old energetic pattern. Some people burn themselves out, like with chronic fatigue. Once they get a good amount of energy, the tendency is to, okay, now I can do what I want to do, and then their system kind of goes back. So you have to, I had one dramatic case with asthma where it was probably the most profound constellation, just because we found she didn't relate her asthma to an accident, and the accident was getting hit by a car, and in which case she had to actually be flown by helicopter from the accident site. And she had asthma from that date on, and the constellation cleared the asthma completely for, it's been 5 years, I think.
Wow.
So that usually doesn't happen, but in that particular case, it was so clear, and the person was really, really open, really earnest, and it just kind of flowed that way. It was, I feel blessed to have seen that. It's like it just opened up, yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, are you each going to do your individual styles, and then, but they'll all integrate as the work integrates?
Who's going to answer?
I mean, we're each going to do 3 days.
We're each going to do
We're each going to do 1 day of the 3 days. And go ahead, and Sarah, if you want to explain that a little bit.
Okay, so the structure, Anne, is that on Friday, Susan's going to take a group up to Eagle Rock, which is a sacred site up here in Topanga State Park. And Susan's going to be doing constellations for the day up there. Then the following day, I'm going to be doing constellations at the ranch location. And then on the third day, John's going to be doing the 5 elemental constellations at the location, at the ranch location. And we're going to do like a lottery kind of thing where whoever wants a constellation will put their name forward, and then they'll be randomly picked. No one's going to get more than one constellation in the sense that everyone will get an opportunity. So if someone gets a constellation with Susan, then that's their constellation for the 3 days, so that everyone else gets a chance as well. And then the way that John described it is how taking it to the 5-element on the third day is like the integration process, right, John?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of. It just seems, going out into nature, and I mean, this will be an experience for me, and just I'm basing this on our conversations. So I can't say that I really, really know until I've experienced it, but it just seemed as we go through this process, we'll see kind of the interconnectedness in nature, the interconnectedness with the horses and whatever else kind of comes in. And then our interconnectedness in terms of our own body and how the systems interact. So it's kind of macro to micro in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then as far as what Sara was talking about, also when we're out in nature in the park, I will be doing like more maybe dyads or triads or, maybe 4 people together. So we'll work that way as well. And so, there's going to be different focuses depending on what's happening in the group and what feels right that day. Because I always have to work with nature and what's showing up, right? Because just like Sara was saying, different things show up, and I was saying different things show up as far as the elements with wind or sun or whatever. So do our little beings, little birds or squirrels or, I've had ospreys come and stay for an entire constellation, So, I've had bears go through camp right after a constellation.
Well, the question is, did the bears register?
No, they didn't have to pay the fee we did. I didn't understand that. We went chasing after them, trying to get their money, but they kept going.
Any
How
other
about some other
questions out there?
questions?
And I think the overall format, we'll see how we have to adjust to the situation. And but I think what Sara said is kind of what we're aiming for. I mean, it could be possible that we find we have more time to do, or we have less time. It just depends on enrollment and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So in preparation, to just keep in mind an overarching intention, and that's flexible as the day arrives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and, like as Susan will be facilitating, Sara and I will be there, and so there's no telling how things will flow, and the same thing in my and when I'm facilitating. I'm just kind of open phenomenologically to what might arise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was a good way to put it. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure.
This is Sara speaking. I just wanted to mention that how me, John, and Susan actually got connected was through a book. Can you say the title of the book, Susan?
Sure. Returning to Membership in Earth Community. The Systemic.
Right. Okay, good.
Nature
Nature Constellations, right?
Yeah.
Systemic Nature Constellations.
Yes,
I think.
right.
Yeah.
Systemic Constellations in Nature.
Nature, there you go.
Yeah.
Which was edited by Francesca and put together by Edwin, I think it's
Kenneth Edwin Sloan.
Kenneth Edwin, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we contributed a chapter each, and then there was 14 people altogether that put in a chapter from all over the world. And when there was this conference in Seattle, I think it was in November or October.
October. Mm-hmm.
October. Mm-hmm. We actually met each other in person. We were on a panel where we each spoke about a little bit about our work. And my experience in being in the hotel for that weekend was like there was no windows. It was really hard for me to be indoors that long with no windows and in an artificial environment. And I talked to John and I said, we should do an outdoor conference thing. And he said, yeah, me and Susan have been talking about that. And I said, let's do it in Topanga at the ranch. And it just happened like that. And then that's how we got it together.
Wow.
It was very organic the way it happened, I think.
It's like the field, the knowing field is carrying us. And so we're birthing something, but we all are steeped in our own way, but we're coming together to broaden that whole perspective of nature and our interconnectedness in all these different ways, from that macrocosm to the microcosm, and through a weekend. So
yeah, 3 days. And I haven't experienced Susan's work, and I haven't experienced John's work. I'm really excited about it.
And the same's true for me.
Yeah.
So I am too.
Yeah, I've only seen let's say Sara's work, and there's a lot of videos. I don't know on your website. You can on Sara's website you can kind of witness some of the work that she does, and yeah, I found it really, really interesting. I've known Susan for a while. We've kind of been in some of the same workshops over the years.
That's right, John.
Yeah. So, anyway, any questions out there? Ooh, come on.
Anything.
Mhm.
Well, how many people are you like? With the max people that you will take for those days?
The
like,
maximum?
What kind of a group can you guys handle?
We're shooting kind of for a 15 minimum.
Okay.
And then
up to 40.
Up.
Yeah. Up to about 40. Yeah.
If it was that big, we would organize it differently, but
yeah.
Yeah,
it
go ahead and
doesn't
say
look like
something
that
about
right now.
Susan.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead and say something about why it would be different if we had.
Well, because we would want to give more. We would want to make the group smaller so that everyone had a chance at all three, of course. But it would be like we'd be doing them. Each of us would be doing a day, right?
Consecutively. Yeah, we'd be doing a day. We'd be doing 3 days.
We'd all three be working on the same day. That was one solution.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of different ideas. So Sara would be working with the horses while I'm doing 5 elements, and then each group then would switch, so they would get all 3 facilitators. So
the group wouldn't become too big, basically.
Yeah, and people would get a chance to work and see all 3 styles.
Yeah.
The way it looks right now is that we'll be doing what we talked about. We'll each be doing one day, and we'll be at each other's workshop, and we'll just work together as a whole group. That's what it's looking like. But never know what the field has in store for us.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have about a month, so see how things go. Yeah. So
we're at 7:54. Do we want to do the lottery?
Yep, we will. Are there any other questions first, though? Just one more attempt. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Sophia, do you want to be in the drawing?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, so
are we
ready for the drawing? Anything else you guys want to say, John or Sara?
And just that if anyone's interested in the event, it's at natureconstellations.com. It's easy to remember, natureconstellations.com. And
it's $450, right, for the 3 days?
No, it's $350.
Oh, $350. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have to do all 3 days. You can't just do one, right? You have to.
So you can do one day at 150 a day.
150. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's 9 to 5, right? Or 9 to 4?
I think it's 9 to 5. I think.
9:30. I think we said.
Yeah, 9:30 to 5. Yeah.
To 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You guys ready?
We're ready.
Do you want a drum roll or anything?
I was going to do a drum roll.
Okay. Wait, I want to tell them a little bit about what I did. I put all of you that requested to be on the drawing, I put your names in a kind of a fun little sparkly turquoise hat because it would add a little more magic. And I can't see any of the names or anything, and I am tossing them around right now. And, I'm kind of excited. I'm like, woo, what's going to happen? Who's going to get picked? So just putting good energy in here for the best outcome. And the winner is...
The
Cheryl.
Oscar goes to...
Cheryl.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
That's who I picked. I just picked Cheryl.
Well,
Wow. Okay, I've got to look at airfare.
Congratulations, Cheryl.
And I've got to look